In order to show His uniqueness, God inserted pictures of discontinuity into the biological world. In order to show His infinity, God, in fact, put a discontinuity, a spectrum of perfection of discontinuity into the world. Now, this session is going to deal with that. What is that spectrum of discontinuity? What does it mean? What does it look like? And it is a bit challenging here. You have to hold on and listen closely on this one. We're going to begin with evidence of discontinuity between species, between individuals in species. When you think of two organisms of the same species, two human beings or two rabbits or two dogs, you'll find that, of course, the two individuals are extremely similar. They can readily mate with one another, so any dog with any other dog, any rabbit with any other rabbit. And these two evidences suggest that there is continuity or similarity between the individuals of a species, showing no discontinuity because they can mate with each other and they are so similar. Yet at the same time, they have separate bodies. They have different DNA, usually, with the exception of identical twins. They have, in fact, the same, very, very different DNA arrangements. And so there's evidence of both this continuity, in terms of mating and so on, and discontinuity. But given how much continuity there is, the discontinuity is rather shallow. It is easily crossed over. Organisms can mate with one another, so clearly there's not so much discontinuity that they cannot do that. And I call this kind of discontinuity extremely shallow discontinuity, like whether you can cross a stream or not. If it's really, really shallow, you can cross it easily. And in this case, it is easy to cross over the discontinuity, so I call it extremely shallow. If we consider another group of organisms in the world, namely varieties, cultivars, and breeds. What I'm talking about here is, let's say, within the dogs, we're going to talk about breeds of dogs. These are not things that occur in the natural world, but as we have mated dogs with one another and have chosen characteristics that we like in particular dogs, we have landed upon or discovered certain combinations of traits that we find attractive. We found a set of traits in an organism that we came to call the St. Bernard, that we like that combination of traits. And so that type of dog with that combination of traits is a breed, the St. Bernard breed. We've done the same thing with plants. We like a particular rose color or a particular orchid color or a particular orchid shape. And that becomes a cultivar. Usually in the plants we call that a cultivar. We like to keep breeding that particular form because we like that combination of characters. So breeds, cultivars, varieties, another name sometimes for the plant cultivars, are things that we have discovered by breeding, or we've created by breeding. When we consider those particular, compare one breed with another, one variety with another, one cultivar with another, we find that the St. Bernard has a recognizable shape and form. It has a recognizable morphology, meaning that it is distinguishable from other organisms, other breeds, other varieties, and therefore it's evidence of discontinuity between breeds. But at the same time, they readily mate across the breeds. So a St. Bernard doesn't really have much trouble breeding with a German Shepherd or whatever. They don't even seem to have a preference for their own breed. And what's interesting too is if you don't cause them or don't kind of control what they mate with and so on, the breeds will just indiscriminately mate with other breeds, and pretty soon, after a couple generations, you can't identify the breeds at all. The breeds do not persist under natural circumstances. Same with the cultivars. You release a particular cultivar of rose or raspberry or tomato into the wild, and very quickly, after a few generations, sometimes even after a single generation, they've mated with other cultivars, varieties, or the wild type, and they're no longer recognizable. They don't persist in the natural world. They disappear completely in the natural world. We didn't discover the breeds in the natural world. We didn't discover the cultivars. We created them by controlling their breeding. So as soon as we leave them under natural circumstances, those breeds, cultivars, and so on disappear. That suggests that there's a large amount of continuity. There is much more continuity than there is discontinuity. Now, it's a little more discontinuity than there was between individuals of the same, let's say the same breed, but it's still, there's still a lot more continuity between these groups than there is discontinuity. So I call that very shallow. Now we can compare two species, two different species. So we can compare the one zebra species with another zebra species, or a zebra species with a horse species. And here, again, we have recognizable forms, but arguably the difference between two species is a bit more than the difference was between two breeds of that species. So there's a little more discontinuity than there was in the case of varieties and breeds. And under natural circumstances, species persist through history. In fact, we've got pictures, drawings of species in caves that go back thousands of years, showing the same species has persisted for very, very long periods of time under natural circumstances. So unlike breeds and varieties, there's more discontinuity that persists through time. And in fact, if you look at the fossil record, we find that species tend to stay unchanged from layer of rock to layer of rock. There's something we call in the fossil record species stasis, meaning they don't change. And so not only do they persist in human history for thousands of years, they're even not changing for even longer periods of time in the fossil record. Also, in the fossil record, when we find them first appear, they often appear very quickly, meaning in the layer just below the very first individual fossil of that species, we don't find a transition from another species. It's something that the paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould called abrupt appearance, that you might even have in that previous rock layer, that lower rock layer, another species that is very similar, but you don't have individuals that make the transition readily, smoothly from one species to another. The one species seems to appear abruptly in the fossil record, suddenly in the fossil record, suggesting there's a gap between the two species that is jumped. The stream that you're crossing here isn't waded through, it's jumped over in this fashion. All these things suggest discontinuity between species that is greater, larger amount of discontinuity than the discontinuity between breeds of the same species. But at the same time, I've already referred to instances where two species are known to exist side by side, and in the zone at the contact between the two species, we have a hybrid zone in some cases, where between the two species there are intermediates. It looks like the two species crossed with each other, mated with each other, produced hybrids between those two species that suggest that it's possible to cross that stream there. So it's not so much discontinuity that you can't cross it. It's not so much discontinuity that you can't wade across. In fact, there are intermediates between them. Also, there are very many, and I've already referred to this before, but there are many interspecific hybrids where we've taken individuals from two different species and crossed them, and they produce a hybrid. a very large percentage of species, in fact, can interbreed with another species similar to it. The hybrid zones and interspecific hybrids, in fact, point to continuity between species. We have much more discontinuity between species than we saw between breeds and cultivars, but we also have less continuity between species. So we have still, I would say, more continuity than discontinuity, but it's a shallow discontinuity. This is a spectrum of perfection of discontinuity, extremely shallow discontinuity between individuals within a species, very shallow, not a little bit deeper discontinuity between varieties, cultivars, and breeds, shallow discontinuity between species. We move up to the next biggest group. Species are classified into genera. We look at the genus level, and again we have recognizable forms, but the difference between two genera tends to look a little bit more, bigger gap between genera than there is between species. We find no examples of hybrid zones, so the evidence of continuity that we had between species we do not recognize between genera. We find fossil stasis. When a genus appears in the fossil record, it persists through the fossil record unchanged, just like we find with the species. They appear abruptly in the fossil record, no transition from anything that comes before, like species. These are all evidences of discontinuity, and it's a little bit more discontinuity than there was between species. We do have, however, some evidence of continuity. We do have, although we don't have hybrid zones, we do have instances where we cross two different genera to produce hybrids. So we have intergeneric hybrids, which evidence continuity. We also have in the fossil record some instances where a series of species are found between genera, and in fact some instances where genera and successive layers are laid out one after another as if they're transitioning from one genus to another, suggesting continuity. Not as much continuity as there was with species. So genera show more discontinuity, a little bit less continuity, so I call that a semi-deep discontinuity. We've already referred to Brahman's created kinds, which technically in the creationist literature, those things we believe are Brahmins or created kinds we call holobrahmins. Those holobrahmins show no evidence of continuity between them. There's no hybrid zones, there's no fossil record intermediates. We know of no instances where two different created kinds or Brahmins cross with each other. So I've called that deep discontinuity. So we're continuing with our spectrum of perfection with increasing discontinuity. We also classify our created kinds into higher groups. So for example, there might be a created kind of the dogs, created kind of the cats, and then those two groups are grouped together into a higher group of the carnivores. And then the carnivores are grouped with other groups into a larger category, let's say the mammals. The mammals are grouped with other animals into the vertebrates. The vertebrates are classified together with other animals into the animals. And the animals are grouped with the plants into the kingdom, into higher kingdoms, higher groupings. So there's successive groups as we go up. And each group, as you go up to the next level, they seem to get more different from each other than the groups were within. So we're increasing the amount of discontinuity. We go from deep discontinuity between Brahmins or created kinds to even deeper discontinuity between higher and higher groupings of those created kinds. And then finally, the very largest discontinuity is actually between all the organisms of the earth and everything else, between life and non-life. Here we have the very deepest of the discontinuity, where we have an enormous gap in that discontinuity gap between organisms and non-organisms. One of those gaps is in terms of complexity. The very simplest organisms that we know of, like bacteria, are hugely more complex than the most complex thing that is found outside of life. Even the molecules, we're going to talk about this in a future chapter, even the molecules of which the bacterium is made are vastly more complex than any of the molecules found in the non-living world. The non-living world has never been known to generate life. Life has never come from non-life, the law of biogenesis. We have never even seen the molecules that are found in organisms generated naturally outside of organisms. When you're outside of life, not only can you not get life, you can't even get the molecules of life generated. So there's apparently a very big discontinuity between life and non-life in not just the issue of life versus life, but also even the molecules that make up life. Humans have never been able to create life. So not only does it not occur naturally, but humans, with all their ingenuity, with all their intelligence, with all their manipulative ability, they have never been able to generate living organisms from non-living organisms. In fact, we haven't even been able to, as has been already pointed out, to make a dead thing come back to life, a truly dead thing to come back from life. So the physical world cannot create life at all. It appears to be a general rule that the physical world cannot produce a non-physical thing like life. So the very largest of the discontinuities in this spectrum of discontinuity is between life and non-life.